If you're going to live by this system that man created, you need to be prepared to fail. If you are going to live by Satan's system, you should be prepared to hit a brick wall. Because any way of life besides God's way of life is a dead end. Any system, any design that you live by outside of God's design all leads to a dead end. So the only way to live is through Christ. The only way to really live our lives is through the system that God designed. Everything else is failure. Everything else is a dead end. There's not one thing you can name that man ever did that ended up somewhere nice, ended up somewhere good. There's not one thing you can name that man ever did that ended up somewhere besides a dead end. Even if you look at just the way man created jobs for people to work. You work these jobs sun up to sundown, some sundown to sun up, putting in hours on top of hours. And then what happens? You look at the way they tax you. They take back so much of the money you thought you made until, if you look close, you will see the failure in that design. You will see how that design of working for money in man's system or in Satan's system is nothing but a dead end. Nothing but failure. And so many people fall for it and try to live like that because they told you you made $25 an hour. They told you that you make $21 an hour. But if you sit down and do the math, you will find out that you're involved in a system that's nothing but a dead end. You see me sitting up in this truck that man designed. But every vehicle, mine and yours, has a day coming when it's not gonna run. Has a day coming when you're gonna have to do something to fix it. You're gonna have to do something to make the vehicle work like it was intended to work, because it's going to fail. That vehicle is gonna hit a dead end because man's hands was tied into it. When you look at the way man charges you to have these vehicles, that's man's system. That's Satan's system. Add up how much you actually gonna spend paying for your car, paying for your truck. I know they told you that it costs $30,000, but add up how much you gonna spend after you pay that note every month for 5 years, 6 or 7 years. How much did you really pay for that vehicle? That's failure. That's a dead end. Do it with your house. You got people crying and complaining because they just want a house so bad. Well, if you get that house, you need to get it through God's system so the house can be yours. If you get that house through Satan's system or man's design, add up how much you're going to really spend on that house. They told you it was $250,000. Do the math. If you pay that note every month for 30 years, how much did you really pay for that house? That's man's system. Man is greedy. You do the math on that, that's failure. That's a dead end. Everything that man has his hand in without God, that's going to be a dead end. You will fail. Look how man made all of this technology. Look at the computer. Yeah, you got the computer, but you got viruses. Yeah, you got this system where you can have water in your house, but you got bills. You can have power in your house, but they overcharging you for a bill. It's all a dead end. I know you don't like this stuff because I don't like it either, but it's true. Everything man puts his hand on, you better not follow it. You better not desire it. You better not fall in love with it. You better fall in love with God's system. You better fall in love with God's design, because the only way you're going to ever have anything that's worth having is going to be if you get it through God's design. The only way you're going to ever accomplish anything that's worth accomplishing is going to be if you accomplish it through God's design. Everything else is failure. Everything else is just a dead end. I know they told you you would have peace if you did it this way, but that leads to a dead end. They told you how much money you could get if you did it their way, but it leads to a dead end. They told you how good it was going to be if you got your education through their system, through their school, through their program, but it leads to a dead end. They told you how great you would be if you came and worked for their company, if you came and worked under their plan, but it leads to a dead end. Some people can recognize that dead end right away. Some people, they have to go and do whatever they do for like a year before they realize this is failure. This is a dead end. This is not getting me to where I thought it would get me. And it took a year for them to see it. Some people, it might take 5 years before they realize what they're doing is failure. What they're doing is not getting them the results that they thought they would get. What they're doing is actually leading them down a path towards a dead end. I worked on a job for like 13 years. And every time I think about it, I can just kick myself. 13 years. Where was I getting? Nowhere. What was I doing? Nothing. That was failure. And I don't want to hear nobody tell me, well, that's what you had to go through. That's what God had for you to go through. You're a lie. I went through it because what I know now, I didn't know then. I went through it because of my ignorance. I went through it because of lack of knowledge. I went down a 13-year path that led nowhere because of my doubt. A 13-year dead end because I didn't live by God's system. So I thought I had to be there. I thought I needed to be clocking in, working all day long, all night long, and clocking out. I thought I was making money. I thought I was headed somewhere, and it was a dead end. But when I got in God's system and started living by God's design, I no longer needed that dead end. Now for the last 10 years, I haven't even been there, and I've been taken care of more than I ever was while I was there. That's the difference in man's satanic system and God's system. That's the difference in man's design and God's design. But of course, the choice is still yours. A dead end or God's system. A dead end or God's design. Success or failure. Don't fall for the dead end deception.